Welcome back everyone to another Weather at a Glance video. In today's forecast, we are going to be going over an upcoming chance at some mid-Atlantic snow. And we're not just talking about some, we have the potential to see some large sums of snowfall. Now, while this is still a week out, we are looking at some larger accumulations that could be expected anywhere west of Washington, D.C. and up through much of the mid-Atlantic. All coming up in just a bit. Now, before we get into things here too quickly, I want to go over our overall forecast map from our most recent official winter forecast for the winter season of 2023 into 2024. And here you can see we want to focus on this little portion down here towards the mid-Atlantic because I really want to put an emphasis on kind of how my forecast is doing so far. And there were some concerns that it wasn't going to work out. I know a lot of people were kind of getting iffy because winter is kind of well underway and a lot of this hasn't happened yet. But let's go ahead and zoom in here. So you can see here we have the region of big snow. So I want you to focus on this area and I want you to keep this in your mind as we progress through the forecast because I want to show you that things are looking really well. And I'm not going to pat myself on the back here, but I am saying that this is looking pretty consistent with what I forecasted, and I'm pretty excited to see how this works out. So keep this area here in mind. Also keep the mixed region in mind that we're going to talk about freezing precipitation later in the video. Now, on this slide here, we're looking at the GFS, and this is our simulated precipitation type radar here. So this is being simulated through the GFS, and it's showing you basically rain, snow, all of the above types of precipitation. But what I want to focus on here is the storm track. So we see, starting off, we have our low pressure system developing over some upper level divergence there. And you can see it pushes eastward up the coast, kind of in that nor'easter fashion. But we're not really going to focus so much on the nor'easter aspect as we're focusing on how it's a little more inland and how a lot of these areas are going to be impacted or looking to be impacted by a lot of snowfall. You can see here with the GFS is not holding back at all. They are showing even those pinks into purples with that snowfall, which is indicating very heavy snowfall there for much of the mid-Atlantic, including Pennsylvania and even some portions of the Ohio Valley. So this area here that I've drawn kind of really puts an emphasis on some heavier snowfall and some large accumulations with that as well. Now, I want you to also focus up here for the high pressure up here before the low pressure system arrives. Now, what this is going to do, if this does play out, is this high pressure area region here will drag cold air down. And you kind of saw that on the thumbnail there too, but it's going to drag that down, all that cold air, and set that up prior to the arrival of the low pressure system. So we have all this moisture coming in with the low. Again, this is down by the Gulf of Mexico where all of this moisture is sitting and pulled up, and that is going to be brought up with this low pressure system. And once this meets that cold air, anywhere with any temperatures at the surface below 32 degrees Fahrenheit, you're definitely going to see a better chance of seeing snowfall accumulation. So that's kind of what we want. We want to see this high pressure drag that cold air down prior to the arrival of the low pressure system because we don't really want, if you want to have snowfall, you want to have the colder air in place. All right, so now we're going to switch to the GDPS. This is our Canadian forecast model, and we kind of want to get an opinion from all three various global models that I want to focus on today. But for the most part, you can see the storm track is quite similar. It starts down here over New Mexico due to that upper level divergence there. We can see that low pressure system form. That's a surface low. And we do see that we have this pushing up eastward towards Pennsylvania and the mid-Atlantic. Now, the GDPS is more focusing on the freezing rain aspect. It's basically saying, hey, our upper level air is a little too warm for any accumulation, so we're kind of talking about the rain and then it freezes upon impact at the ground. So we're talking about more of a warmer upper level air mass rather than what the GFS was saying. So not so much snow, and we're going to get into that with our freezing rain accumulation, but the GDPS is kind of going on the track and it's kind of going its own way versus the other two. And it's saying, hey, we're not really going to see so much of the snow, but we're going to see the freezing rain. And you can see that in that purple, pink, and orange there. That's kind of indicating those freezing rain, anywhere from freezing rain to sleet. That's what we're looking at for much of the mid-Atlantic with this forecast model. Now, finally, we're going with the European forecast model. This is European high res. And here you can see we're looking at the same type of storm track. Again, this gathers down all that moisture down by the Gulf of Mexico, and it pushes up northeast along the coastline. And the European is also suggesting a lot of snowfall, very minimal freezing rain accumulations. It doesn't really show any freezing rain moving through there, even sleet at that. But we do see a little bit of mixed precipitation between the line of rain and snow. But here you can see the majority, it shows the same thing as the GFS. A lot of heavy snowfall for areas of Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia, and even down into Virginia, west of Washington, D.C. We're kind of seeing the similar story for that heavy snowfall. Now, we're going to go into accumulations lightly. Again, this isn't to forecast how much snow you're going to see because we are a week out. So this isn't to say, hey, you're going to see 6 inches of snowfall or hey, you're going to see 3 inches of snowfall. That's a little too far to predict out yet. So I just want to give you an idea of what we're kind of seeing so far because the models have been a little more consistent in the way that they're projecting the snowfall. So we're going to look here first, and you see a lot of heavy amounts of snowfall, large amounts of accumulation here. Anywhere in the pink is 6 inches and up, and we can see that a lot of these areas for much of the mid-Atlantic and Pennsylvania up there into the northeast, we do see a lot of areas of heavy accumulation, large accumulation amounts of 6+ inches. And we see even a couple spotty areas down here in Virginia, east of the mountains, of around 12 inches. And we see about a foot up here as well for parts of New Jersey, New York, and eastern Pennsylvania. So that's a very big possibility with this winter storm. Again, we're seeing that potential for a foot and above for some of these areas in this congested line of anywhere east of the Appalachians, just at the east side of the mountains. And you can see for the rest of the areas, we do see this kind of gets really slim along the coast, and that's due to that warmer air along the coastline. So you can see there's a very slim area, maybe about 50 miles or so, where you're going to either see snowfall or you're not going to see snowfall. And you can see that's quite drastic along the coastline. But up here for the northern areas, we're looking at about 1 to 3 inches as of what we're seeing now. Again, please don't try to forecast accumulations just yet because we are still a week out, but I'm trying to give you an idea of what we're seeing. And this is with our European forecast model. Now, moving on to the GFS, where GFS is showing a little more northward. It's pushing all this heavy accumulation for much of Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is getting the brunt of this impact, and we do also see that similar story for Virginia. So we're also including some of the Appalachians in this heavier 12-inch plus region here. We see even up to 14.4 inches there of heavy snowfall accumulation there for the mountains. And even in the parts of western Pennsylvania here, we see a little spotty areas of 12+ inches. Now, for a lot of these areas, we do see a lot of 6+ inches of snowfall, again, for Ohio. So this is telling a similar story, just like the European forecast model. The only one that I really am concerned with is the Canadian, because it does show a different story, but that's singling itself out. And these other two are suggesting that we do see the snowfall rather than the freezing rain. All right, now finally, we're looking at the GDPS snowfall accumulation here for the Northeast. And we are seeing that this is pushing it very farther northeast than the GFS and the European forecast model. We see a lot of that warmer air is down here to the south and mid-Atlantic, and that's going to keep the snowfall away. That's what it's suggesting as of right now. Some of the Appalachians do see snowfall, but the majority of the heavy snowfall is up here into Maine and New York. So again, I wouldn't hold this too highly yet because this is only one forecast model out of the three other globals that I'm using, but we do see some of those similar stories up into Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and New York, where we see those 12+ inches of snowfall. That's kind of keeping that similar as well. But everything else, this is a lot further north than the other two we're suggesting. All right, now I'm not going to single out the Northeast from the rest. We're obviously going to look at the rest of this accumulation. We are expecting accumulation down here into the Ohio Valley and the southern United States even. And this is showing the European, so we're going back to the European forecast model once again. Again, you can see a lot of these 3 inches, 1 to 3 inches here, indicated in the blues, and then we do see those pinks and purples, 6 inches plus. But anyway, you can see a lot of those accumulations for Kentucky. Kentucky sees a little bit of that 6+ inch activity, and we do see for a lot of the southern Appalachians there, we do see a similar story as well, even reaching into the potential for a foot of snowfall. But I take that with a large grain of salt. Now, looking at the GFS, we see a very similar story here, a little more heavy on the snowfall activity up here for parts of Virginia. As we said, you can see a lot more of that, but we do see a lot of these 1 to 3 inches here, all the way down to Missouri and even down into Tennessee. And of course, the Appalachian Mountains there, the southern Appalachians, we see a similar story, less of the 12-inch possibility, but we do see about 6 inches of snowfall there, just east of Clingman's Dome. Now, finally, with the GDPS, again, it wants to keep all the snowfall north. It's hogging the snowfall from you. It's saying, no, we're not going to see that. But we do see a lot of the north actually does see that 0 to 0.5, so about half an inch of snowfall there for a lot of these northern areas. And then we do see the potential for some accumulation in the Appalachian Mountains, and even down to Alabama there. But a lot of these areas are not going to see as much snowfall if this were to play through. All right, now moving on to the aspect of freezing rain, we're going to go with the GFS starting off. And the GFS is saying, hey, we're not going to see as much freezing rain. We're going to see a little bit here east of the Appalachian Mountains and even including some of the Appalachian region there. But we do see some spotty accumulations up there in Pennsylvania, down into northeastern Tennessee, and even into North Carolina, as well as South Carolina. We do see that potential for some freezing rain. Not too much, anywhere below half an inch is kind of what we're looking at right now. Some spotty locations are suggesting up to 2 inches, but mainly under half an inch of freezing rain. So not too much of a potential hazard there, but we do still see that potential for freezing rain. Now, the GDPS does tell a larger story here. We see a lot of areas up to that 2-inch region there. Again, you can see 2 inches of freezing rain. This would be quite significant. So again, like I said, our Canadian forecast model isn't suggesting so much of the snowfall to the south, but a big story upon the freezing rain. So who's going to be the outlier here? Who's actually going to be correct? We don't know yet, but this is still far out. And the GDPS is the only one that is suggesting this type of storm track that's keeping things really towards the more freezing rain precipitation type rather than the European and the GFS, which are suggesting snowfall. But you can see here a lot of the eastern Appalachians there, just east of the Appalachian Mountains, are suggesting a lot of heavy accumulation of freezing rain there. And then we do see some parts into Kentucky even, and into the southern Appalachian Mountains there. We do see a lot of that potential for under half an inch of freezing rain. All right, I want to thank you all so much for watching today's video. A big thanks to our channel members. You help keep the channel going. Chris Betty. A big thanks to today's sources, Pivotal Weather, where all those forecast models you saw in today's video came from. I would ask you consider subscribing for more of these forecasts free of charge. And I would ask you consider following the Weather at a Glance official Facebook page for more inside information and complimentary personal forecasts when you message me on my Facebook page. Again, I want to thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.